The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv, and we've got another week starting at the beginning of the campaign season. So
yes, we do.
Off we go.
Before we get into our show, but this is going to lead into our show also. Tonight, 6 o'clock, Our Lady of Light Band Club on Quarry Street. That's just where Quarry and Quikashan come together, I guess. You'll see it just before there. It's across from the old mill building. Is the ARPA meeting. So if you're interested in being heard, you'll notice I said being heard. You can go to that meeting. Many people in the city feel that going to the meeting will be a waste of time because they don't think that they're going to be listed, that while they may be heard, they won't listen to them. Because remember, there's a difference between hearing and listening. So if you want to be heard, I would suggest you go to the meeting. It's at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7:30. I don't believe it's being aired live, so that's probably out of the question. But you can send emails or written comments to mayor@fallriverma.org, and it will supposedly be read. You'll notice I'm saying supposedly, allegedly. I'm not going to give you any guarantees because remember, the first meeting we heard what's going to happen. We need to spend this money and we need to spend it now, although they are refuting that claim. So with that, we can get into some ARPA money discussion.
With that, there we go. We're off and running. Boy, that's a great segue because that's exactly what we have to, what we want to talk about because, as you said, now they're refuting it, but we know that's the attitude they had. We have to spend it and spend it quickly. But you didn't get the other little thing, but we have to spend it on what we want to spend it on.
That's right.
Damn the taxpayers, full speed ahead. And actually, I caught Councilor Trot Lee on the radio this morning talking about there may be pending a lawsuit by the council about the approval of the utilization of that money because he was citing the law, which I've been kind of citing to a lot of these councilors for a while now, that the law, actually 4453A, is kind of clear. At the beginning, it talks about the acceptance of a grant or monies. But then at the end of at the second part, it talks about, again, getting the approval of the mayor and the city council to ensure that the grant is being used for the purposes that it was given. So I guess Trot Lee alluded to that on the radio, and therein lies the problem. And hopefully, I do hope they go to court. Everybody, their excuse is always, we got to spend money. Well, sometimes you gotta spend money to save money, and in this case, you might have to spend money to get a benefit for the taxpayers because if the city council gets approval, maybe they can use some of those funds for not taking care of bankers and friends. Like the CPA does. So I think it's important. And, there's a lot of, the Shakespearean thing, doth protest too much. Now they're denying everything they said. They're denying what happened in the meeting. And we go back to that controversy between City Councilor Peckham and what went on in that meeting. And so this is going to be a major issue. And frankly, my personal opinion, you can go there and give whatever opinion you want. The backroom boys have already got this spent, and they're going to do everything possible, like they did to cover up the Malone deal, to make sure that nobody knows what's happened until it happens. And they're going to basically say, we've got the right to do anything we want with it now because you approved the entire grant, which is not, I don't believe, in compliance with the law.
Well, you're right. I firmly believe. I've read that law several times, and I believe that the city council does have the authority to approve any expenditures of that money. But then again, the mayor wants to shove it down your throat and not give you an option. And he's made that clear when he did it with the budget. He made that clear when he did it with the appointees to the Port Authority. He made it clear when he said to the police chief, you can, fire the harbor master for insubordination. The mayor made it very clear. If you don't like what I'm doing, you can pay for it. And that's not the way it works. But
you're right.
But with the mayor, that's the way it works. Because you know what? If you don't, everyone loves me. Everyone loves me. Everyone loves me. I don't see why people don't like me. Everyone loves you, but people don't like you. What's the difference here? But it's going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to go to that ARPA meeting tonight because, again, I feel like many others feel that their voices really won't be heard. And I don't want to call them out right off the bat with what Chris Peckham has said, because who am I to believe? Ken Fiola, who obviously stated, I'm not going to say he lied, but he totally misrepresented the fact that the Fall River Pier, the state pier, is the only pier showing a profit. That may be true, that the New Bedford Pier isn't showing a profit, but the New Bedford waterfront is showing a profit. It's showing millions of dollars in profits. So again, it's the way it's the Paul Coogan modality. Pick a word and use the word carefully. But while the state pier may be showing a profit, none of those profits are used to maintain the building or the moorings or anything else or the docking. So is it really showing a profit? Or is that just money that's being accrued for other purposes? Are they waiting for somebody else to pay the bill? Guess what? If you're showing a profit, pay the bill.
Well, I think you hit on a extremely important point because this is what you call political speak. They manipulate the narrative. It's like a half truth. The New Bedford Pier is not operating at a profit. So we're going to operate our pier at a profit. But let's look at that. Let's break that statement down and let people look at this from a logical perspective. See, this is what they do best. It's like when they used to say, look how many jobs we created. But then they don't tell you how long those jobs are kept in Fall River, how many of them left again. And this is the key. You've got to look at the forest, not the tree. See, that's the old con. Look at the tree, show you the tree, point at the tree, and don't look at the forest. And as you said, CJ, critically important. That had a tremendously positive impact on the waterfront in the city of New Bedford. When businesses thrive and people come to spend money, cities do better.
Well, look at what just happened in New Bedford.
What is Fall River going to do, though? Let me just make this point, then you can
go ahead.
Because Fall River is about let's develop the pier so all our friends that are invested in the pier, and then what we'll do is we'll worry about developing the waterfront the way we want to develop it so only our friends can make money at some other point in time. You see, the thing's got to be taken in the entire context of the forest. Now, we've seen the waterfront not be developed for a very, very long time. And again, it gets a backseat to their agenda, not an agenda that's looking for the comprehensive growth of the city. And in New Bedford, they developed a pier, and that pier had a positive impact because they had a waterfront that already was fairly well developed, not unlike ours.
Yeah, and when you think about it, look at what just happened in New Bedford with the signing of the contracts for the wind projects. Okay, 500 new union jobs. 500 new union jobs. I'll say it one more time. 500 new union jobs. Those are going to be good paying jobs. Those are going to be good paying jobs with benefits. People are going to be able to make a living doing those jobs. How come Fall River's not doing it? Guess what? Fall River doesn't have an excuse anymore. Ken Fiola had the excuse that, well, before, Fall River was restricted from doing wind projects. Well, guess what? We're not anymore. I guess it was your wife, Mr. Fiola, who entertained the legislation to allow Fall River to do that. So where are our 500 guaranteed union jobs?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's got a positive. Like, wind. We saw what happened to wind farms in Texas, and the weather up here is a lot tougher. And I saw there are a lot of people, frankly, that are not really in favor of having those things in their backyard.
Oh, I know.
On the waterfront, So, I mean, but hey, jobs are jobs, and Fall River doesn't have any. You don't have much choice because we've got no jobs, and that's the key. But as you said, all these projects always mysteriously are all skewed toward a very small group of players, and that's the problem. Fall River has always been locked up by a very few rich people. And just as an aside, because I don't want to forget, but Hill Camara is being sentenced on Wednesday.
Yes, and they're asking for time.
Mm-hmm. So just a little aside about cabals. We had the other criminal conspiracy cabal. Now, I guess we'll be on Wednesday looking for at the sentencing. But this whole thing and the way it's done is just an example of the way narratives can be manipulated. And well, I'm going to pick on the fact that they're not making a profit, but I'm going to ignore. It's like talking about Fall River and ignoring the fact that 23 point something or other percent of people are living below the poverty line. So treating it like this is Newton when we talk about things, and they have that perspective, and it's up to people, as we say. You've got to educate yourself, do some research on the thing, and look at it in an objective, pragmatic way. Because, look, New Bedford has done, far more. They've got a working fishing port. Not that a Fall River can have a working fishing port. I mean, that industry goes back to Moby Dick. So, but they've maximized it. It seems that though they've got the right idea. And we all don't like New Bedford because of all the Durfee grads are always, Fall River, New Bedford has a great rivalry. But it seems as though the city of New Bedford has had a lot more effective development than we have. And where do you blame that on? The leadership. All we've heard is lip service for years. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do it's, the check's in the mail. Don't worry about it. And that's the problem.
Well, I'm still waiting for my check. But it's, we've been, how many times have you heard our waterfront is a hidden gem? How many times have you heard that? I mean,
yeah, it's been hidden for about 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like the South Coast Rail. That was hidden for what, 30, 40 years?
Yep.
And we're finally maybe seeing it.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's to me it's still a maybe until the day that train rolls into Fall River and rolls in with a usable schedule. That's the key, a usable schedule. Because one train in the morning and one train at night is not a usable schedule. People don't want to go to Boston at 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. and come back at 6 p.m. unless they have a job there. And even then, they don't want to get up at 6 a.m. to go to work when they don't have to be there till 9. And they don't want to be waiting until 6 p.m. to leave when they get out of work at 4 or out at 5. So a usable schedule would be appropriate. I'm not saying run a train every 15 minutes, but every hour and a half wouldn't be a bad idea. But we'll see what they come up with. I mean, because remember, the T doesn't make any money, but everybody gets a job, especially if you're a political kiss ass.
Yeah, we know how that goes.
Exactly.
And I just pulled up the law, and it goes in the beginning of the law. Basically says that they approve the taking the grant, but this is the section I believe that goes on to that he was alluding to. For the give. Fundamentally, a city may expend funds for the purposes of sub-grant. In cities having a Plan D or E form of government with the approval of the city manager and the city council. And then it goes on to say that the same has to be the grant has to be used for the purposes for which it was designated by the approval method stipulated in the law. So basically what they're saying is there's two sections. The city council first agreed to take the grant, and then they also have the secondary mission as the legislative body and the keeper of the purse strings to ensure and approve the expenditure that it's being used for the purpose that the grant stipulates. So you can't have people misusing the grant, and the city council has to vote on it. That's what the law says. It is pretty clear. And of course, the city's ignored that because just like the city said, well, I don't care about the budget process anymore. After the hundreds of years we've been using a budget process, we've got a mayor that said, well, I'm not going to cooperate with the city council. I'm going to say I'm going to be working on a budget to kind of resolve our differences. And then he just waited them out and ramrodded his budget through. And he's going to do the same thing. He's going to attempt to do the same thing with the ARPA money. So now, after the fact, we're having public hearings. Oh, we're going to have it tonight. We're going to listen to everybody. After we've already had the meeting and all my pals have all cut up the pie. So let's see what happens. I'm not, it's a sad commentary that the city of Fall River doesn't understand basic civics. The mayor keeps saying, and he said it numerous times, I'm the mayor. Well, you are. You're the executive branch. And the legislative branch is the branch that gives you the money. They are, in fact, the Ways and Means Committee. And they have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the money is spent correctly. And you don't want them to weigh in because you don't want them to basically not approve an expenditure that you've already promised.
Well, I hope if they take this to court, not only do they get an opinion on the ARPA money, but they get an opinion on whether or not the city budget has been funded, because the city council has not appropriated a dime for that budget yet, but the mayor is spending it like a drunken sailor.
But
so
remember,
if that money hasn't been appropriated, there is no money to spend. And under the charter, let's remember, Mr. Mayor, under the charter, which is the law, we use the law. We're gonna honor the law. Under the charter, the mayor can be held personally liable for the expenditure of that money if it wasn't approved by the city council. So guess what? I mean, is he going to be able to afford keeping Fall River running for a month or 2 or 3 or 4, because guess what? That's what the charter says. That's what the charter says. And I'll tell you now, if a judge ruled that the mayor did not have the authority to spend any money because the city council has not appropriated any money for that budget, I would definitely seek to have him pay for it. Let his pension pay for it for the rest of his life.
Well, I'm glad you use that colloquial expression, like a drunken sailor, because now it gives me time to pull in one of my quotes. Ronald Reagan said, people say that the government spends like a drunken sailor, but there's a difference. A drunken sailor is spending his own money.
That's it.
Not the taxpayers' money. So that was one of my all-time favorites. Drunken sailors spend but they're spending their own money, not other people's money. And you're right. He's spending it like, okay, look at you, gotcha. I got you on a technicality, so I'm going to spend it. And like I said, don't look at the tree. That's a tree. Yeah, he is spending it. And you can be upset with that, but let's look at how he's spending it. That's the key. The key is he's spending it based on his budget that was based on his agenda. Remember that there were a lot of things in that budget that the city council disagreed with, and I think justifiably so. And the problem is you can't have a government if you have one branch of government that says, I don't care what you do. I mean, it's happening in the federal government now. The president of the United States is using executive fiat to change law. And that's going to be going to the Supreme Court very shortly. So that's why we should go to court. CJ, you're 100% right. We have to protect our own turf on the local level because it's happening on the federal level. The executive branch just can't take the government over. And by fiat. And this is what's happening all over. Oh, I see Bentley's relaxing. Well, Abby was on. You can see the comfort is not quite as rumpled as the last time, and the pillows all over the place. But she got up there and rumpled my comforter, and now she's laying on a couch in the living room. So, but that's what happens when you have dogs. And
hey, dogs are better than people. At least they know how to act.
Yeah, my dogs never tried to take over the feeding schedule. But
our dogs have never taken over the funding of the city.
That's right.
They've never shoved it down the city council's throat.
Yeah. And it's a dangerous thing. We're kind of laughing to keep from crying. But this government was set up in a brilliant fashion. I mean, our forefathers, they can say what they want, but they were brilliant men. They set up a government that's unique on the planet. And that tripartite system where you have checks and balances was a stroke of genius. And now people are trying to undo that for just raw political power. And that's wrong. And who gets hurt by that? The people. Because remember, a Jeffersonian quote now, when a government has enough power to give you everything you need, it can take everything you have.
That's right. Yep. The Great American Experiment. That's what they call us, the Great American Experiment. And I'll tell you, you can be a naysayer. You can be somebody who says, it's a conspiracy. This was formed by the Illuminati. I mean, I've heard everything about the Great American Experiment. But the Great American Experiment is what made us a great country. You'll notice I said what made us a great country. I'm not saying what is making us a great country. And the reason I say what made us a great country is because today the people are willing to give away their freedom for $300.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's where the Jeffersonian quote comes in. because they're getting everything they want and they don't have to work for it. But somebody's got to pay for it. So sooner or later, that money's going to stop. And when it stops, the government is going to be taking everything away from you.
Yeah. Oh.
So this isn't a game. This isn't a thought. This isn't, a possibility. This is now becoming the reality. Our founding forefathers knew what could happen to our country if somebody like Joe Biden or Paul Coogan got into office, because they will give you everything and take everything as well. And that's exactly what Paul's doing. He's giving you drive-ins. He's giving you music shows in the parks. He's giving you free food. He's taking your freedoms for a hot dog. Can you believe that? For a hot dog. That's what's happening. And that's what's going on. Okay. And do I think that it's also an election year gambit, a play? Yes, it is. I mean, because we know that the Fall River voter, for the most part, can be very stupid and will sell their vote for a hot dog or a chow mein sandwich. We've seen it over and over and over again, so I don't expect any less now.
No, you're right. And listen, people can say what they want, and in this country, they have the freedom to say it, yet they don't want, they're trying to suppress the First Amendment for people with differing opinions and creating a socialist, a Marxist, communist country like Cuba. Look what's happening in Cuba. But, the great experiment was a great experiment, but the way they fashioned our government was, I said, a stroke of genius with the checks and balances. Was it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. But let's take a quick look at this country and all the people who now condemn it, all these groups that want to turn this into Russia, where you got to wait 2 weeks to get a loaf of bread, or Venezuela, where everybody's starving, or Cuba, where people are starving. Socialism, communism has never worked anywhere. It's a totalitarian form of government. But remember, this country was not perfect, but the way it was fashioned was close to perfection. This country had a civil rights bill in the 60s. It's gotten better. Is it perfect? No. But we've moved closer and closer toward addressing the problems of this country. But remember one thing. This country is so terrible that people from every country on the planet are trying to sneak over our borders to get here, because they know the difference. They've lived under communist governments. And, if America was so bad, we wouldn't have people from 140 different countries sneaking over the border as we speak, trying to get here, coming from the countries that some of our quote unquote progressives want to make this country into. Communist, Marxist countries. They love Marxism. They love communism. I think they're traitors to this nation. I think that they're communists. They shouldn't be part of a democratic republic. And if they like it so much, hey, go to Cuba. Help Cuba out. Maybe you can figure it out, how to feed the starving people. Go over to Venezuela. Maybe you can figure out how to feed the starving people in Venezuela. You guys are so brilliant. You want to change a country that everybody in the world is trying to get into. Maybe you're the people that are wrong. Maybe you're the people that are delusionary. Wake up. But remember that Cory Bush spent $70,000 in 3 months on personal security, while coming out of her mouth was defund the police, defund the police, defund the police, and was coming out of her butt was taxpayer money to buy her own personal police department.
That's it. That's how it works. Well, we're out of time. The time flies on our show. I want to thank you all for watching. Please remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. And get to the ARPA meeting tonight if you want to be there. Thanks for watching.